look at the coaxial cable, composed of an inner insulated conductor surrounded by another conductor made of a metallic foil or woven wire. Resistant to electromagnetic interference. Types of coaxial cable. RG59 is used for short distance cable TV applications, usually 75 omegas. And RG6 is used by cable companies to connect homes to the company's distribution network. And the RG58, similar to the RG59, but with an impedance of 50 omegas, used for radio communications and legacy networks.
Okay, thank you. So this one here, the RG58, is the one that I always kept on crying about. That's on the bus. That's the coaxial cable that if you don't read 50 ohms and you only read the 25, it basically tells you that that's the location that is bad. So this is the coaxial cable. It has this little jacket on the outside. It has a copper center here, conductor. The braided shield is right over it, and it has like a little dielectric cord to try to protect the shielding. It is basically for any of the cross, sound, or interference. That's what the braided shielding is for. There's different types of connectors here. We have the F connector, which is the one that you're used to on the back of your TV. It has that little cable with the circle around it. The BNC, we learned not too long ago, is the one that locks on, that bayonet connector. Usually used in 10-base-2 Ethernets. Not really used that much anymore. But it is used a lot when it comes to video, though, we also mentioned. But in this case, for networking, it's not used much. The next type of cable is the STP, the shielded twisted pair. This one here, you guys are most likely very familiar with that one. And it is usually used in Ethernet and token ring networks. It's called the twisted pair because that's what it is. It actually does that on purpose. Each individual twisted pair has its own twisted amount, believe it or not. You'll notice that some of these are, even in the picture, you can look at it, even the brown one, which is usually the easiest one, that one is the one that's twined the least. Yet the green and the orange, they're twisted much more. And the blue is, I believe, the one that's the second least. That's obviously to avoid so that when the signaling goes through, it's all electrical current. So if it all goes at the same speed and it actually is one next to each other, the signal will actually cross one wire to the other and will create problems. So they actually came up with that idea of twisting it, and it solved the problem. No longer will the signal actually cross from one to the other with the actual intertwining of the signals. One, it won't cross connect from receive to send on any of the pairs. Any questions or doubts on a shielded twisted pair cable? Unshielded. So the only variance is this in the UTP one is that it is obviously that is not shielded. If we look at this one, we have that little metal jacket kind of little thing and that annoying little foil on it. That's why it makes it a shielded twisted pair. While this one here is just unshielded. It doesn't have that special shield. All it has is just a little cover here. And obviously this is less expensive and a majority of people use this. The previous one is mostly used when you're throwing it on top of lights or near lights, that those fluorescent lights are in facilities, since they create so much of electric magnetic interference or EMI. Basically, that's why you would buy the more expensive one. So the ones that are usually going in the wall and that don't have that much problems, you would just use this one. Any questions? Also, another variance here is that the UTP ones, they're twisted much more tighter than the other ones. Your UTPs, what type of categories do you have? You have from Cat 3 all the way to Cat 7. Cat 3 most likely is not being used anymore. And you wouldn't want to buy anything that's Cat 5 or below, or 5E more or less. 5E. 5E, because of the fact that obviously you're not going to have gigabit Ethernet, not until you get to 5E is when you actually have gigabit Ethernet. And besides that, obviously nowadays we're already up to 7. If you buy anything cheaper than that, you're basically throwing your money out the window. The maximum length for all cables is 100 meters. The only variance is that if you want to be able to have the 10 gigabytes on the Cat 6 and 6A, you need to be less than 55 meters. The cable itself, if you want, you can have gigabit Ethernet at 6 and 6A at 100 meters, but it won't transmit at the 10G. Next here, you have the Cat 7. This one is fully integrated both for the actual gigabit Ethernet and the 10 gig at 100 meters without a problem. Any questions? Plenum. This one has a extra layer, obviously to help for the fire. It's a fire retardant, usually used in rooms where we're concerned with HVAC systems or server rooms. You can see that it also has a big plastic little thing dividing it here. There's the foil around it. This is very expensive, and obviously is made to protect the cable at all times when it comes to fires. The main reason why. The type of communications maybe on these HVAC systems, like the ones that have a halon and suck all the air on, or they actually control the air conditioning and everything else in there that is sends signaling back and forth throughout the network. Some of them are that sophisticated. You might want this type of cabling to avoid, obviously, creating any problems if there is a fire. It's gonna slow it down, not gonna stop it. Questions on the plenum cable? Still a twisted pair. Okay, on all these type of twisted pairs, we have obviously the different type of connectors available. You have the RJ45, which is the 8-pin connectors usually used in Ethernet and or token networks. As I stated before, Ethernet is widely used now, and we're not using that much token. RJ11, it's the 2 to 4-pin connector usually used for the phone cables. Most jacks nowadays are compliant to allow that the same jacks you're able to connect a RJ45, RJ11. It has like a little special little hole to be able to match it. Obviously, not all of them, but a lot of them do. Wiring standard, you have your A and you have your B. There's main difference between here is knowing where the greens are and where the orange are. At all times, I'm not making jokes. At all times, before you go with any color, you start with the white guy. So it's either white green or white orange. So the first one, which is A, you have white green, green. Now the trick is, unfortunately, in the third one, you're gonna go to orange. So the colors are green, orange, blue, brown. Green, orange, blue, brown. Problem is, whenever you get to the third one, he actually splits his legs open and he lets blue in. So you have the white orange, now you have solid blue, white blue, and now you have solid orange. And you finish it off with the white, brown, brown. It always finishes white, brown, brown. The second one now starts with orange instead of green. You just flip-flop orange with green. That's the coloring of B. And the B, when looking at this here, orange is first. So I have orange, white, orange. White, green. Now again, now white, green is he's gonna open up his legs and he's gonna let in blue again. So blue, solid blue, and then we have white, blue, then solid green, white, brown, brown. Yes, you must know those colors. I bet you $100, 9 out of 10 times, if you don't do those punch downs the right way, the signaling, like I said, since the twisted pair needs to be a certain way, believe it or not, 7/8 in the majority of cases is not being used. So the expected speed of going through these wires and the signaling, if you don't have the color correct when it goes from one end to the other, it's going to go to the wrong place. To the point that I've actually, when I first started, all I did is just make sure that all colors were flip-flop. Nobody taught me that I had to have that blue guy in the middle. So I did the white, green, green, white, orange, orange, white, blue, blue, white, brown, brown on both sides. Looks beautiful. Didn't work. Don't ask me, man. I can only tell you it doesn't work. But the major difference, as I stated, is the orange and the green. Those are the only ones that move around between A and B. Any questions? Okay, sure. So how do we look at this? Well, we need to pretend that this right here is the little jack that we saw. The tooth that's on him, this little doohickey is out there, right? He's actually over there. Here is a little metal teeth that you can see. When I'm holding the cable, I should be able to see the gold teeth. And that's how you should line up. When I look at it and I'm sticking in these cables and I'm terminating it, I should be looking at it in that terms. That's what number one right there. I see the gold tooth here. If I'm looking at it the other way around, I'm doing it the wrong way. And again, you might run into problems because then you basically punched on the cable the other way around. Questions? I'm amazed. No questions. For real. Okay. So they have a cute little thing here. I never learned this. I just learned the colors. Trees to the sky because of the green. Brown to the ground because that's the brown. Then the river runs through the sun. So here's your sun, which is orange, and the river's in the middle. That's A. So trees to the sky, brown to the ground. Here now it's sun to the sky because orange is in the top. Brown to the ground is still there, and then the river runs through the valley. You could think about this as a valley. Blue is still in the middle, as you notice. No major difference. They're just giving you names here. Any questions? Doubts? Hello, hello, hello. Anyone home? Okay. Now that we know our colors, we can make a straight through cable. Straight through cable basically means that I assure that on both sides, it's identically punched down. Now, hubs are so dumb that they are unable to cross over the actual signal. Switchers are smart enough to do this. If I wanted to connect sometimes, let's say a hub to another hub, I needed to create a crossover cable because it wouldn't understand. It wouldn't understand. Because on one side it's supposed to be doing something while the other one's supposed to be doing the other. It just doesn't connect. It doesn't connect. So what do you need is a crossover. Basically what it does is flip-flops the pinouts of A and B. Very similar. You see then that on one end, I'm using the color coordinating with A, while the other end, I'm using the color coordinate with B. That would create a crossover cable. It swaps the transmits and receive pairs. And basically, you could actually connect without having a switch or a router or a hub. You can actually connect two computers together with a crossover. Any questions? Fiber optics. Now this medium, instead of using electricity, as we've stated so far, all of it has been copper, using electrical current to be able to send your ones and zeros. The fiber optic uses a fiber light to be able to send the signal. Obviously, this is great because it can go very, very large distances depending on if it's single haul or multi-mode, compared to the actual fiber who has the limitation of only 300 feet or 325 feet or 100 meters, whatever you want to call it. This can go very, very long distance. It has the core, which is a little fiber optic hair. Never try to tear this open with your mouth. Ask me why. I didn't do it. It wasn't me. It was somebody else. I'm scared the living daylights out of me. That's fiber optic. So that means if it gets into your tongue, good luck getting it out. You have a special shielding here and a cladding. You have another outer layer on it, like a little coating, plus the actual outer jacket. That's what it usually looks like. Now, the orange ones, the ones that are color-coded orange, 900 out of 10 is usually multi-mode. And then the one that has an outer jacket that is yellow, that one is pretty much single mode. That's how they usually color code it. So you can tell right away. Any question in reference to fiber optic cable and how it transmits ones and zeros on a laser light or an LED, depending on which one it is?
I got a quick question about multimode.
Okay.
I remember reading the homework and it was referring that multimode can usually only go up to 100 megabytes per second. Is that true?
No. I will look at the speed soon. I believe it goes a gigabit, 10 gigs. I think it can go up to. Remember, this would be used more for your backbone. So let's say you have your LAN, and I said earlier, your main distribution frame will be that center location. So when I'm going here and I have my switch, here's my MDF, right? Then I have one that only has fibers. That goes out to this guy, which is the IDF. What's the IDF? That's the intermediate distribution frame. Here's my MDF. That's my router where everything goes out. So here's my MDF, main distribution frame. That's the main closet. The IDF will have more switches here. The connection in between the two would be short haul fiber. Unless if you're going and interconnecting buildings that are so far apart, which I've seen it, the IDF is over almost a mile away or over 1,000 something feet, then it requires single mode, and then that single mode fiber is used to connect that remote IDF. So that would be the media that it's using, the actual fiber optic to connect one to the other. And stating that since it is connecting one closet to the other, it requires more bandwidth than a regular cable. A regular cable usually going between 10, 100, and nowadays with the new ones, it's going obviously gigabit, and some servers go up to 10 gig. Obviously, you're still as good as your slowest link, so it doesn't matter how fast your network card is, but at least you have the feature available there so that if you have the capabilities. Questions in reference to fiber optics and the media itself and how it intertwines with a network? So how does it do this? The single mode uses one direct laser beam going across. This guy here is one of the most dangerous ones to troubleshoot. Not only do they tell you always not to look at this guy with your eyes. This guy here, at least he's red. So without looking at him, you could put a piece of paper, turn off the lights, and paint and point the laser little cable towards the actual white piece of paper, and you will see the red light to confirm everything's okay. Do not look with your eyes. This is a laser beam, a really nice, beautiful laser beam. will burn eyes with prolonged use. This is an invisible laser, therefore invisible to the naked eye. Very dangerous because people, when they start troubleshooting, they look at this guy. Some brave souls, since they're used to looking at this one just real quick and it hasn't actually damaged them, they start staring at this. And just like the sun, if you look at it while you are in eclipse, it will still burn your eyes. Any questions? So the variance is that this one actually bounces it around, has a straight and multi signals going through. You see it? That's one laser beam going through, a laser beam going through here, and a laser beam going through there, bouncing off the walls of the fiber. This is a very zoomed in picture of that fiber here in the middle. Any questions so far? So based on the frequency of light, it gives ones and zeros back and forth through these connections. Here's our multimode. The multimode fiber has 100 base, gigabit, and 10 gigabit. Variance is depending on the actual distance itself. The 100 base FX goes 2 kilometers. The gigabit goes 200 to 550 meters. And the 10 gigs goes up to 300 meters. Versus our single mode, which is the 1000 base LX, that one can go 2 kilometers also, and the LR can go up to 10 kilometers. That's the variance on the actual fiber itself. Those are different types of fiber available. They're all of them are called either multimode or single mode, and depending on the speed, you can look at this as like the Cat 5, Cat E, 5E kind of thing. That's the same thing here, and this will be Cat 6, Cat 6E, lack of a better name. But those are the names. FX, 100 base FX is your multimode. SX, also multimode, but the variance is the speed. And the 10G base SR, again, multimode and the speed and distance. Any questions? Majority of the businesses that connect back to the actual POP most likely are coming from the actual device, which is next to your house. You guys have probably seen it. Have you guys ever seen the Bell South or the AT&T, those little boxes where the telephone guy is there talking on the phone? It's a green box on the floor usually. That's where you usually go to and where it's getting distributed. From there, there's fiber optic going back to their main node, back to the POP itself. Any questions on multimode or single mode?
Is there any like tricks to like remember the Ethernet standard? Because that looks like a lot.
Oh yeah, all of them that start with L is long haul.
Long haul. Okay.
Long haul. All of them that start with L here means long haul. So long haul is who? Single mode. Anything that starts with an S is short haul. Multimode. That's what the S stands for, short haul.
Okay, and what about F then? Further?
The FX was the original one. That's all I can tell you. I couldn't come up. I know it's fast and extended or something. We can find out what FX standard for. I don't remember. That was the old one. I never touched that FX one. Fast Ethernet. That's what it's called. It's a fiber optic cable that provides fast Ethernet. That's all it is.
I know you are. Trust me.
So which one's faster?
The 10 gigabits per second.
10 gigabits per second.
And obviously, depending on your flavor of distance, the multimode goes up to 300 meters. And if you need to go up to 10 kilometers, you're going to need single mode. These things are usually, like I said, that's where your main backbone of the network will be. So if you're connecting closets, it's going to be via fiber. Or if you're connecting facilities, at one point or other, if the one facility to the other, we're looking at LANs here now, and it's too long, you're going to require single mode.
And multimode and single mode, is it like multiple like cables and just one single cable or something like that?
Good question. It wants to send, wants to receive. It's a pair always. So it's a pair of fiber. The variance is the signaling and how it sends the signal. As I stated before here, this is going to be a red laser throwing the laser at 3 angles, while the single mode or the short haul fiber sends a direct beam, very strong, invisible beam that burns your eyes. I could only say it so many times. I've done people sometimes. So, I'm sorry, back to, I was going to tangents here. So the question is, any other questions? So anything that has L is long haul. Anything that has S is short haul. The other thing is that we can remember is that F is before S. So he must be before him. So that means he is the slower one. That was the other thing that I always remembered. A lot of these things, they try to, you'll notice that when you get confused, the letter that is lower, a lot of the times means it was the one right before it. The technology before it. Don't ask me why. That's just the only thing, the only pattern that I've seen a lot of times. So what's the other pattern that I see? That X here and the SX, this is the one here, the same thing is equivalent to an LX. The only difference between an SX and an LX is the fiber multi-mode. What do I mean by that? Because I can go 1,000 megabits per second on an SX, and I can do the same thing on an LX. The variance is one single and the other one, or a short haul, and the other one's long haul. But they go at the same speed. Anything that is an LX or an SX, they go at the same speed. While the other one that's an R, that's the gigabit, the 10 gigabit one. So SR, which is short haul, that's 10 gigabits per second. And then long haul with the R is 10 gigabits per second. But it's long haul. So that means I can go 10 kilometers with it. Short haul, I can only go 300 meters. Questions? Doubts?
So the long haul, the max you could go is 10 kilometers, and the short haul, the max you could go is 300 meters.
On the SR and the LR, but you'll notice on the FX, on the original one, I can go 2 kilometers at 100 megabytes per second.
Right.
So, it'd be misleading there.
But like for the SR and the LR. The
Correct.
Rs.
The SR and the LR are at the same speed. The variance is obviously this one can only go 300 meters, and this one can go 10 kilometers.
It can't go more than that, right? Or can it?
No, 10 kilometers. And always, as always, in anything in network, the closer you get to that number, the most likely you're going to have degradation of signaling, and you're going to have problems. If you get to the limit, I assure you right after that, you will have problems with the signal. That's why bridges exist. Or those little boxes in the middle of the city, those little boxes that I told you about, those little distribution boxes, is to be able to then do as they do with the buffer memory. You guys remember what the buffer memory does? It basically grabs the information and he just buffers the information so that it makes sure that when he sends the signal, it's clean signaling of electricity of the zeros and ones. In this case, obviously, clean signal in reference to the fiber light that's going. So that's why anything that gets close to that, they always make sure that the distribution frame is so many kilometers from the pop.
So
If not, go ahead.
So essentially, you would say that the multi-mode's, I guess, better than the single mode because it's...
Multi-mode usually is the one that you use inside facilities, is cheaper. And then single mode is just because of obviously the distance that you need to cover.
Okay.
The main difference is because of the distance that you want to cover.
Okay.
Usually multimode, the easiest thing is to remember multimode is short haul, short distances. If I want to go long haul, then I need to go single mode.
Okay, got it. Okay, makes sense.
That's their function is that. Geographically, short haul is for multimode. And that's because since it's bouncing everywhere, the light starts degrading faster. Versus in single mode is using a different type of laser light that goes much further. And it's going straight. Obviously the cable may be going around in circles, but you feel me. It's going down the center of that actual fiber. Any questions? Whew, and this was the easy one. Okay. ST, SC, LC.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Is fiber cable, fiber optic cable is expensive?
Usually, yes.
Some providers offer it.
It's the most expensive media out there, yeah. Fiber. Yeah, copper is much cheaper per foot. Copper would be your Cat 6, 7 cables. That's copper. Versus these fibers, it's fiber optic cable. Very, very, very fragile cable too. Gotta be very, very careful with it. Now, how do I remember these here? The only reason I remember these is because of the old token ring. After that, everything else becomes very easy to me. If we remember token ring, I told you guys had a ring connector or a BNC connector. So this little round guy, he has a little mechanism. In the center is the fiber there with a plastic tubing. And in the center, the little center there is the fiber hair. And it has the little mimicking, almost identical look as a BNC connector. But this one is called ST. So the way I remember it, the straight tip connector, although it's called straight tip connector, I just remember it looks like a token ring or a BNC connector, ST. Now, SC, exactly that, square. I just remember the word square, C. Although you don't spell square with, the only thing I remember, SC square. Now that I know that it's square, when I see LC, which is still squared, but he's got the little tip. He's got the L. You see the L here? Here's my little L on top. You see, you feel me? See this L right here? Here's his head. He looks like an SC connector, but he's got an L on top of it, which is a little doohickey here. That's like, just like on an Ethernet cable, where it's got that little plastic tip. That's the plastic tip that you see here, but it's shaped like an L. The reason I say that is because now you have the MTRJ, the multi one. This one is awesome and easy to notice because, as I said before, to be able to connect these things, you're always on pairs. So in the ST, SC, and LC world, you're always going to have a pair of connectors or a pair of fiber optic cables that you will be connecting. In this case, no. And the MTRJ, you'll notice here the two fiber strands are included in one connector. You see the two tips there?
So that means the other connectors run in half duplex?
No. The other ones require two tips. This one only requires one tip. This here, it has still two strands of fiber. So every single strand of fiber on these requires two tips. So one to send and one to receive. So when I lock it onto the switch on the port, it has a port that's called the transmit port and a receive port. It only works that way. And that's why I keep on saying, do not look at the hole because it's tempting because you want to see which one's transmitting. The one that will be transmitting is only the one that has the light. So that one is the one that I would put the dark fiber on. Why? Because if you are transmitting, then I need to send via the dark fiber so that when it receives it over there, it's coming on that side. While if you were transmitting from back here, when I come back over here, I need to stick it into the hole that is dark, because since you're transmitting from over there, you're sending light. It needs to be in this hole that's here that is actually the receive hole. There's always two strands, one to send and one to receive. That's the way it keeps the order out of the chaos. All these connectors or adapters that are going into these switches, depending on the fiber optic module, there is a module that goes in there. Be that it is, you purchase that usually separate, and it is specifically for either short haul, long haul, and some of them are actually to be able to daisy chain one to the other with gigabit Ethernet using Cat 8 or 7, whichever you like. Now, so here, in this case, you would see two of these, one next to each other, identical. And this one, this cable here, it actually has the two going straight in here. The panel in the back will have the two strands. So here's a panel, it's on the wall. It'll still have the two little strands in the back. It'll plug in straight into there. And then the switch, he has a hole that you could just plug it straight into there. There's no guessing. Why? Because he's got this little doohickey on the top that looks very, very weird over here. Does not look like the L. And plus the LC is what? Single. So the MTRJ gives you two fibers. It's pretty easy. Why? Because it's got a T in here. The multi-T. Easy way I remember it. So it gives you the both, one for transmit, one for receive, all in one connector. One strand. Usually this cable is about maybe a meter long. These cables are more meant to be able to connect from the panels to the actual switches. Because the terminations in the back, a lot of the times on the panels in the back are ST. Because the strand that's coming in the back sometimes is 24 strand from one building to the other or from one closet to another. So you have backup. Any questions? Those are the different type of connectors that I can terminate a fiber cable. Doubts? All right. Can somebody give me this one here?
That's a square connector.
Yeah, so if it's a square connector, what letter should I put there?
SC.
SC. Now that I started writing on this guy, what is he?
BNC
Yes.
or coaxial.
No, the connectors.
Wait,
the connectors.
Is BNC a type of coaxial?
The BNC is a connector for coaxial cable. The coaxial cable has BNC and F connectors.
Okay.
Okay. Now here on the twisted pair, which one is this guy?
Registered Jack 11.
RJ11. Yes, that's correct. What's this guy with the little leg?
Connector.
And he's squared. So if he's squared, he has that letter that's in common with square, but he's got a little leg. So he's what?
LC. Lucent.
LC, that is correct. Since it only has one fiber and it's got a little doohickey here, he is LC. Had it had the two little ports and a doohickey on the top, that would be the MTRJ. How about this guy? He's completely circle and he's yellow. So I know it's long haul fiber right away. And
ST.
that we said is ST because if it's like the token ring bayonet connector, it's ST. And our last blue little friend here, I'm pretty sure everybody knows this guy. What's his name?
RJ45.
That is correct. RJ45.
So does yellow wire in optic means it's using single mode?
That's correct. And the yellow is, I've yet to find a yellow that's not single mode. This is in these little connectors. Don't get me wrong. The fiber, when it comes in that thick one, the big pairs, that comes in a whole bunch of colors. But the one that is used on panels to connect from the panel to the switch or to the device, they usually come in those colors so that you can easily identify the type of fiber you're touching. Because if I connect, even though the connector fits, if I connect a single mode fiber to a multi-mode switch, won't work. Although both of them had an SC connector, it will not work. Different type of fiber, different type of signaling expected. Any questions? All right. We're gonna jump over this part right here. I think we beat it a dead horse, and we're kind of running out of time. We haven't gotten even to the second session yet. Do you guys understand what a Cat 6 is and an RJ45 connector?
Yeah, this is a huge chapter.
Can you go over the Cat 6 really quick?
Cat 6 is a category 6 type of copper. There is various types of copper. We have from the Cat 3 all the way up to, I think it's either Cat 7 or 8.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it goes all up to 8. Now that category, depending on the category that is here, tells you how fast it can go. The higher the category, the faster the Ethernet. From my understanding, if I remember correctly, Cat 6 goes up to gigabit Ethernet. Cat 6E, is it, or 7 goes up to 10 gigs. So depending on the type of category is the rating of speed that it can go. If I put a category 3 cable on a category 6 switch and hope that it's going to be running, even though if the switch, the server, and everything that's connected to it is able to transmit at high speed, the cable would not sustain the speed. Copper is unable to actually sustain that speed. Questions?
What
In
does
reference,
UTP
I'm sorry, go ahead.
for?
The what?
What does UTP stand for again?
Unshielded twisted pair.
Okay.
STP means shielded twisted pair. The only variance between one cable and the other is that the STP is shielded and protected. Then you have the very robust one, which is the plenum one. That one is the one that has the fire retardant on it. But they're all all are twisted pair. So they all come. I can have an STP who's Cat 6. I can have a UTP who's Cat 6. And I can have a plenum cable that's category 6. The first part that I'm talking about is if it's shielded, unshielded, or if it has plenum shielding. The second one lets me know the category on the rating and speed and distance that it can go.
Do
Does
they
that help?
work? Yeah, it does
What?
help. It
Okay.
does help.
Okay.
But another question.
Yeah.
Do they work together? Like the category 6 plenum with the category 6 UTP, they work together at all or not?
Yeah. The only thing you're getting from plenum, from UTP or STP is either shielding or no shielding.
Okay.
To avoid EMI transmission. And then the last one, which is plenum, is to help for the fire retardant. So it has shielding for the EMI, and it has also the fire retardant portion of it. So it has 2 layers.
Yeah, but essentially you'd have to use the same category from each of them for them to work. Or whatever.
To sustain the speed, you would have to have the same exact category of all. Yes, if you want that speed, all of them to be able to transmit at the same speed, yes. To have the benefit. Doesn't mean it's not going to work. If I got a Cat 5 cable here and a Cat 6 cable, both of them can be UTP. I just have to be realistic on that the guy that's on Cat 5, what's his maximum transmit speed compared to the guy that is on Cat 6. Because if my switch is able to do his job, he'll be able to, with ease, let you transmit the one with Cat 5 at 100 megabits per second, and the person that's on Cat 6 at 10 gigabits per second.
Okay.
That's all it gives you. The category rating gives you the data rate possibilities of the cable. awesome thing about all of this is that the maximum length of all this copper is always 100 meters. The only variance is when you come to 6 and 6A, that if you want the 10 gigabits, it has to be under 55 meters. He's the only catch. Otherwise, you get your full speed on any of the other ones.
Wait, say that one more time. The difference between Cat 6 and
The only variance out of all these cables, all of them, the maximum length is 100 meters. The max I can do a drop is always going to be 100 meters. The only variance is that if I want the 10 gigabit Ethernet that 6 and 6A provides, the mandate is that if I want 10 gigabits, the cable must be under 55 meters. I can still transmit at 1 gigabit up to 100 meters, but if I want to take benefit of the 10 gigabits per second, it must be under 55 meters. The cable.
Okay. And that's the only difference between Cat 6, 6A
And 7.
Cat 7,
Yeah,
right?
6 and 7. That's the only difference. They both are able to go up to 10 gigabits, and then the 7 is, it gives you, no matter what, the max length is 100 meters, and you can transmit at gigabit or 10 gigs. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Now, Cat 5e also has here the features of going from Ethernet to fast Ethernet to gigabit Ethernet. What do they mean by that? Well, Ethernet over here is basically a slower speeds of 10 megabits per or 10 base T. The fast Ethernet is when 100 megabits per second. So Ethernet is 10 megabits per second. Fast Ethernet is 100 megabits per second. Gigabit Ethernet means 1 gigabit per second. And 10G is that, 10G. Any other questions on the categories or data rates? Token ring, as we said before, it can run on Cat up to Cat 4, and it goes, I believe it was 4 and 16 was its data rates, but usually the one that they had after that was 16. Not many people were using the 4. But that, as I stated many times already, it's really not being used that I'm aware of. Okay, let's go back to the slide that we were in. Coming into our Crimpers Rj45. If we look at this little doohickey real good, he's got Rj45 and an Rj11 hole. This is the one that actually crimps the wires. So as we saw earlier, the connector, when we peel over the cable and we insert the connector, it's not really sealed in or crimped in is the terminology that's called. You grab this crimper that you have here, and with the crimper, you're able then to crimp on or lock on the cables. Not only does it go and make sure that it has a bar that it snaps down a little plastic bar to avoid you to be able to yank the cable out, it actually pushes down the metal gold copper or copper connectors. It actually pushes them down and it bites the wire. So those little teeth that we said, when I'm looking at the cable and I'm lining in the actual orange, white, the orange, and the greens and the blues and the browns, when I stick it in and I crimp it, that's what it does. It locks so that the jacket portion doesn't get going. So the plastic part I put on the jacket, and then the head part over here where the metal is, it goes into each wire and it basically bites it. And since it's metal to metal, now electricity can flow through. This side here is used to actually peel the cable. In some cases, it has a side also to actually cut the cable. This has all in one. It's usually a beautiful tool to have handy when you're dealing with actual cables and you're crimping cables, creating the actual termination being a male RJ45 or a male RJ11. This doohickey over here is called a punch down tool. He's actually useful for the female portion of the RJ45 or RJ11 jack. These little doohickeys that are out there, did they show us? Here we are. Good, they do. So I grab the actual copper. I go and I grab my little crimping tool. I peel the cable, and voila, I have the various little colors. Now this little guy here, I want to make sure that I untwist everything. The horrible thing that they don't show you here is that you should organize your colors. You want to be able to organize your colors and make sure you separate them out. Make sure that they don't get mixed out. You come in here and you actually guide them in. You'll see that there's a picture. You'll see here how it has blue. Each little one, there has a little square with the actual picture corresponding. If it was white blue, they'll have blue with a little white strip through it. Same thing with white green. They'll have green with a little white green through it. You align the cable and you put it in here. Now, the crimping tool or the punch down tool has a yellow side, and that usually, and the other side is either gray or blue. On the yellow side, or on the side that it does cut, it says it loud as and clear, cut. It says the word cut here. Why? Because that's the side that I want to make sure is facing the side that I want to cut. If I put the cut side in the inside, after I organize all the cables in the inside, I will cut it in the inside, and now the cable's loose. Versus if I make sure that I align it and I put the cutting side of the blade on the outside, when I punch down the tool, it is actually like a jackhammer, or yeah, I guess a jackhammer, lack of a better word. When you actually punch it down, it releases like a gun. It goes, bah! And it cuts the cable. Without that pressure, it will not release. It takes a little bit of practice to get it right. Any questions on how to punch down or the 4 steps overall? Last step here is a little cover. They usually give you a little clear cover or a green cover. Basically, you pushed it in and it has little teeth to be able to guide and lock the cables into place. There is technicians who are very lazy and don't like to do that. I strongly recommend doing that. Unless if you're doing 1,000,001 and you ran out of parts. Usually you want to do that. One, it gives an appearance of professional work whenever somebody comes and looks at your work. And two, it makes sure that cable gets bitten once again. When I punch it down now, variance here is that this punch down actually has 2 little teeth that are there. And when you punch it down, it will punch it down into place and lock it into the thing, and it kind of peels and bites the cable. So if we don't put this and we don't make it stay in the bitten portion, when you come up, it's similar as to the back of your jaw is much tighter than the front of your jaw. It's loose. So then obviously there is no connection. The next network tool is the multimeter. That's the guy that gives you those ohms that I was talking about, and or can help you check the electricity. Usually that's more in the coaxial cables, looking at the ohms and having an ohm reader to be able to determine. The other one here that's coming up is a toner with the probe. So the toner here is a device that you're going to go and connect your network cable to. Usually, if it's connected to a switch, good luck, because the actual switch will eat up the tone sound. So you got to be very careful with that. There's a lot of people, at least my trick is that I go and I peel one side of the cable, and I only put the toner to bite onto one of the cables. Basically, so when I put the tip in, I only put like maybe 1 or 2 of these cables into the female jack, so that when I connect it to the end over here, it has a hole for a female, only like 1 or 2, maybe a brown and a blue or something like that. That way there's no muffling of sound. Brown and blue, if you notice I said. Why? Because orange and green usually is what Ethernet is using. So brown and blue, there shouldn't be any noise on there unless if it's PoE or something like that. But either which way, since you're not using the pair, you should be okay. Next one here, this little toner probe. So what happens is that when I go here and I connect this and I turn it on, although your ears can't hear it, there is a loud sound that's going. So this little guy, when I push the button and use the probe and I put it into the panel, this is mostly when somebody has not labeled correctly or has not labeled the punch panel correctly outside on the port. Now I got to search for this cable. The only thing that can help me is this. If it's not labeled correctly, all I have to do now is in the back of the punch panel, go over the big mass of cables that are coming into the MDF or the IDF and basically play the little song. Wait until I hear the song. Is it a song? As soon as I hear the song, now I got to verify, and I'm going to go up and down that one single cable to make sure it is. If not, I go to the next cable that's in that little area to ensure which one it is. Usually, if you have the panel there, you can go in the back of the panel, and it's much easier. Just go over each cable that's in the back of the panel, if you can reach. Any questions? Doubts on a total probe and or multimeter and its use? Next is our loopback plug. Now, what's great about this little device is I can connect it to a switch, I can connect it to a computer, and basically that's what it's doing. It's loopback plug. It's mimicking like if it's if somebody else is sending it. So it sends the signal that was being sent to the receive. So what happens? The card starts flashing in the back. And since I have that, or the switch, the little port starts flipping, I know that there's nothing physically wrong with that port. Once again, because I need to be able to test in the network the physical layer first. He is my friend. I connect it, boom, the little light turns on. I know there's nothing wrong with that NIC card. Be on the router, on the switch, whatever it is, that port is fine. It's turning on. I move on. Now I can go on to the cable. How do I go to the cable? With the cable tester. On one side, now that I have located with a toner probe and I know which one is which, on one side, I'm going to connect on the panel that cable that was going straight to the switch. I'm going to connect it here. And on the other side, where the user is, I'm going to connect on the sender or the receiver. I could send via whichever which way you want to go. Just be note that only one side is going to be receiving the signal, and that's this guy here. So wherever you are, you have to realize that this guy is the one that's going to throw signals out, and this guy is the one that you need to be careful with. Why? Because when it sends out the signal, it's got to be in order. So when you get to the other side, when you see the lights turn on, if you have a straight through cable, it should go in order. If you have a crossover cable, obviously then it's got to skip around. It's got to go and go inverse when it comes to the oranges and the greens, right? So on one side, although it was 1 and 2, it's going to come out here on 3 and 6. That's if it was a crossover cable. And usually a crossover cable, since it's very short distance, they give you this little thing here so you could test the cable yourself in the same room. So if you have any doubts on the cable that's going to the punch panel, you connect from one side to the other, and then it has 2 sets of lights here to let you know, obviously, if the cable is good or not. Any question on a loopback plug or a cable tester? That is exactly it. There's no extra component here. That's what it looks like, and that's as big as it is. Woohoo! Quiz time. Which of the following network types covers a large campus or a city?
Let's see.
Everyone agree? It's a man.
I agree. The man.
Is it C?
What does man stand for?
Metropolitan.
Metropolitan Area Network. They're all called area networks. Good. That might be another clue of why it's a topology. What area network are we talking about? Personal area network, local area network, metropolitan area network, wide area network. Starts sinking in sooner or later. Hear that? Or you guys might send something to the mail to me. What types of network devices keep a table of the MAC addresses of the devices it's connected to? Who stores MAC addresses?
Nick.
Switch.
Okay, I got to vote for Nick and I got to vote for switches. So which one has a table of MAC addresses?
Oh, switch.
Which
That's great.
Redo.
What's the next question? While I'm going here, I don't know what happened there. This thing just refreshed.
The answer was switch, right?
Yeah, it is a switch. That is correct. The answer is a switch. He's the only one who has a table of MAC addresses to be able to decipher where to route packages based on MAC.
Okay.
Although I agree, a NIC has a MAC address, and your operating system may keep track of MAC addresses, but the NIC card itself has no idea what's going on. It itself has a NIC card, has a MAC address. The MAC address does not store anything. Sorry, the NIC card does not store anything in it. The switch does.
More power.
Mhm. Number three.
Which physical topology uses a centralized device to manage traffic on the network? A star.
Everybody agree?
I agree.
Because it's using a centralized device to manage everything. So if I refer back, yeah, the star network looks like it has something in the middle, like a
All right.
rabbit.
We'll go with star. Which of the following connector types is an MMF connector?
What's MMF?
Multimode, I think.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Multimode fiber. Is it a BNC? Does a BNC connector go on fiber? That goes on what? On coaxial, right?
It's an F type.
What's an F type?
That's a
Isn't-
spoolie thing for coaxes.
So this isn't a coaxial. So the BNC was the locking one, the bayonet locking one for coaxial, and the F type is the screw-on type that you usually have in the back of your TV, coaxial. So RJ45 is also for copper, right? That's the twisted UTP, twisted pair, or shielded twisted pair, or the plenum. And LC was the one with the little leg that was squared.
Lucent connector.
Lucent connector, yeah. That's the LC, that's for fiber. If you are going on a run, let's see, going to run, sorry, not on a run. A network cable.
What was the
I'm
answer
sorry.
for?
LC, lucent connector. That's the square connector with a little leg on the top. The fiber connector that had the little that looked squarish and it had a leg on the top. It looked like an SC, like the square connector. The only thing is that this one had a little leg on the top. If you're going to run a network cable in the space above drop ceiling in your office, which type of cable will you use?
Okay. Plenum.
I agree.
No,
Plenum,
wait.
plenum cable.
Yeah. I wrote that down anyway.
Fiber optic or plenum? I don't know. One of the two.
Correct. So plenum. Any questions, doubts?
Why would you use the plenum and not the other one?
Which one?
Fiber optic.
Well, because it's only saying that it's a connection. It doesn't say that it has to go, it's not a backbone, or doesn't say anything about, it's just a regular, you're running a drop, only a drop.
It's referring to the coating, like, you know, like the colors you see right inside it. Plenum is what protects it from being toxic. PVC is the cheap plastic you use. It doesn't have that kind of protection. So that's what it's referring to in the question. What kind of coating does it have?
Oh,
And the plenum one is, the coaxial one doesn't have that, and the fiber optic is just fiber. And it's for a drop. The key word here is drop. I don't know if you guys understand what the word drop means. You know what the word drop means for network?
Yeah. I know there's the traditional one where it literally comes down and you kind of like vampire it, and then you can just have it in a jack wall area.
So drop is basically a network drop is the cable itself. That's what's called a drop. So it's basically the connection or the media from the closet to the wall. So that is a drop, the network drop. Questions, doubts? All right. This pretty much ends this session.